Every sunrise is a reminder that life is offering us another chance. So we had a sunrise this morning. It's another chance, another breath, another step, another moment to begin again. And every sunset this evening invites us to pause, to gather the lessons of the day, and to rest in gratitude for what has been. Life is not just measured in years, but in wisdom carved from joy, loss, love, and growth. The path is never random. Each twist and turn carries meaning, shaping us into who we are becoming. With time, we see more clearly that growing older is not a diminishing, but an unfolding, a deeper awareness of beauty in small things, a gentler strength in facing challenges, a softer heart that holds more love. Thank you. Nothing along the journey is wasted. Every day is a gift, and every step is part of a sacred story written uniquely for you.
Last week when Sharon said, will you do the inspirational talk? And I said, yes. And then what happens in 1 week for me is that my brain works at 300 miles per hour. Maybe I'll talk about this. No, that's been done. Maybe I'll do this. No, I don't want to do that. Oh, this seems really good. And then I get into it. I'm like, that's not going to work. And that's how my process is, because I know a lot of people just completely wing it. And I respect that when they come up here. But I always like to have a thought of what I'm going to talk about. So anyway, after a full week of probably 7 days of that happening, what should I talk about? What should I talk about? I finally decided, as over the last month or more since we've been moved into our new house and everything, it's been about workload for myself, but for Ken. And again, I know we honored Father's Day today. Father's Day for fathers, Father's Day for mothers who acted like fathers, and Father's Day for caregivers, because we all do that kind of thing. But in directing it towards my own life and situation, I respect that my husband knows how to make the impossible possible. And he does that all the time. When things seem like, how is that ever going to get done? How is that ever going to happen? He does it with dignity, where I may do it and complain the whole time. So that's all I'm saying. I honor fathers today, and I honor specifically my own husband, who's a father and a grandfather. And as good as a grandfather as he was as a father. So I applaud that. Anyway, in going further with my mind going 100, 300, 400 miles per hour, I thought of the fact of this busyness that I've talked to you about and how it's been chaotic. I think that's the right word over the last month, 5 weeks of moving into this house and putting things together. But it was chaotic moving out of Florida. So basically, the chaos has gone on for about 3 or 4 months. I think Ken would confirm that that's probably true. So it led me to the thought that when you're younger, you go to a place in your mind of having wonder. Even if as a young baby or a young child, you don't express, oh, I wonder about this. That is a beautiful sunset. How did that happen? There's still that sense of wonder that you have that leads you into a place of peace, of just feeling present at that moment in yourself. Now, again, as a baby, do you think of it that way? You don't. As you get older, where is the wonder coming from? Because we get caught up in our lives of, okay, if we're working, and there's still a lot of people here that work, you're caught up in that day-to-day workload of what you have to do, what you have to get done before you collapse at night. So a sense of wonder doesn't really appear for those in that situation. Ken and I are retired, but you know what? Our life is busy right now. Busy in a way it might not have been a year ago, because now we're watching a grandchild and we're getting caught up in that whole parenting type of attitude again. So your sense of wonderment, if that's the right word, is like, where is it? Where is it? What do you do to bring that back? And I thought about when I was a little girl, how there were certain things that as I was growing up, I wasn't even like very, very young. And it would be like, oh, wow, that is amazing. That's fantastic. And one of them was fireflies. When you were out and it was summer and you're walking around your neighborhood or you're in your backyard and you'd look out and you'd see those fireflies. And all of a sudden you'd go into that state of peace, but excitement. Oh my gosh, look at these fireflies. Right? They light up and they were, and then your eyes started to follow the fireflies all around. And if you saw one, that was great, but you weren't satisfied to see one. Then you had to spot every single one that was around you, because that gave you the greatest sense of joy. Then wonder came in. How did they light up? Why do they only come out when it's dusk? What happens to them when, it's completely dark? Because I don't know if you noticed it, but when it's completely dark, they're gone. Where do they go? So that was what you might have wondered about or felt this excitement about when you were younger. And then, of course, you get older, and a beautiful sunset certainly is a wonder. You look at it and you say to yourself, how can that sun that was a ball in the sky turn to this glow that changes colors from oranges to reds and spreads across the sky? Again, something that gave you peace and a sense of, oh, wow, look at that, look at that. But time goes on, you're busy, you're working, maybe you're raising your children and you're busy hoping they have wonderment, but you've lost yours. Or maybe you're just caught up in the everyday, mundane type of situations. So I was thinking to myself the other day, what do we do with wonder when we get older? And I looked up something that said, try to go back to the beginning, which means start all over again, looking at things with a different eye, looking at them thinking it was the first time you've ever seen it, the first time you saw a sunset, or the first time you saw a lightning bug, something to that effect. And that made a lot of sense to me, because we lose that. We lose that first moment of what it was like when we saw that. It also talked about how go out, even if it's for 5 minutes, and use all your senses. Use your sense of hearing, use your sense of sight, of smell, and just soak that in to understand that there's still things to feel and sense and wonder about. And that made complete sense to me. It does, because it's refreshing. And of course, can you find wonderment indoors? Yes, you can. You could watch a show and you could listen to an adventure, see an adventure show or something, and you have that sense of wonder. But there is nothing like being out in nature to bring that back. And I remember talking to Michelle last week, and you were talking about how when you go to play golf, it's an experience for you. It's not just, I'm going to hit the ball, I'm going to win, I'm going to be the best. It's about a sense of a just experience, which brings wonder in. Oh, wow, I'm walking along this golf course and look at this beautiful bird over there. Now, in Florida, Ken would go, oh, look at that alligator over there, whole different story. But those kind of things bring us to wonder. Or Susan, who's walking along your beach in Asbury Park and something catches your eye, whether it's the sunset or something else, that does bring the wonder back into you. And every sense is being used at that point. Your sight, your hearing, everything. Barbara, with the most beautiful piece of property I have ever seen, you could just go out there and stare at her property and find something to wonder about, something to find excitement in. And I'm sure that's the same with all of us. With all of us, there's something there. Um, when you get back that sense of wonder, you're also stimulating dopamine, which is the feel good hormone. And it raises your levels, and you feel a sense of lightness, and you just feel happier. And even if you could only do that for a minute or two, wouldn't that be not enough to last you necessarily for a day, a week, or whatever, but just to lift you at that moment? And that's what I think we're losing when we get older, is that sense of wonder. And I thought to myself, I really want that back. I've always loved nature as an adult. I'm not a big sports person. I don't find nature in that way. I love to walk and see sights, but I still can say, oh, wow, look at that bird. As we were coming over today in the car, and all of a sudden a bird was flying towards us, and it was all black. But what you saw was the orange that was the inside of their of the feathers. And I was like, wow, I wonder what kind of bird that is. I've never seen a bird that's, look like that. So we want to hold on to that, and we need to hold on to that. And yet, as time goes by, as we get older, it's something that we don't embrace in the same way, because it's kind of like, I'm too tired to worry about this. And I just want to be left alone. I do that sometimes. I just want to be left alone. I don't want to wonder about anything. Just leave me alone. But the point is, we need it. We really, really need it. Now, this new house that we've moved into has a very nice backyard with a wooded area in the back. And we are seeing deer after deer after deer. And not that I haven't seen a deer before, I've seen many deer. But what's happening now is it must be mating season. So you're seeing mommy deer, daddy deer, mostly mommy deer, and these little babies, like 3 babies on the property. And I stood there. Not only did I do that, but we have double glass doors that go out onto our deck. And all of a sudden, I hear my daughter saying, "Did you see the deers that are in the backyard? Oh my God, they have 3 babies. Mom, come look." And then Ken's at the door, and I'm back at the door. I've seen deer before. Deer are nothing new, but it was the wonderment of where these little babies were born. Were they born in our backyard? Where did they come from? I saw the other day this little deer running from our neighbor's backyard in a full trot down the road. And I'm like thinking to myself, is mommy going to go running after that deer? I mean, really, like, is mommy going to go running after that deer, or does that deer know to come back? So nature does bring us to wonderment. It does bring us that sense of there's something more for us to care about. And that's exciting. We need that. We really do. So I'm thinking to myself, what is it on a regular day, an ordinary day, that brings us wonderment? And nature, again, nature is certainly something that works for me. But sometimes it's even like going downstairs into the basement, and I'm looking around and saying, wow, this is interesting the way this is down here, and maybe we could figure this out or do that. It's still a sense of thinking further than what you see and what you are doing. And that's how we progress with that wonderment. Could this be this way? Could this be that way? Whatever the case may be. Well, I guess it was last week, pretty many of you know of our situation with our granddaughter who has a genetic disorder. And so there's constant thought and prayer about her and everything. And I'm sitting outside on the deck with our grandson. And all of a sudden, I'm thinking of Riley, and I look to my grandson, who's all of 11 months old, and he's like this, staring up at the sky. And I'm like, what is he seeing that I'm not seeing? And I turn around, and over our house was the most amazing flock of gigantic birds. I don't even know what they were. And they were circling and circling and circling. And in that moment, even though I've been on this earth a very, very long time, I was wondering and admiring them and their power and their beauty and their ability to glide through life, which is something I would really like to do. And if anybody knows how to glide, please tell me. So I have thought to myself that those are the things that I wonder whether he looked up in the sky and thought to himself in his baby mind, what are those things? But I looked up and thought, what is that? That's exciting. Are those prayers for Riley? Because maybe they are, whatever. So I want you to think about how you can bring that sense of wonder back into your life. It doesn't have to be something huge. It doesn't have to be an everyday occurrence, but find something that you can do that with, because when you do, you bring yourself to a place of peace. Like I said, even if it's for 5 minutes, if it's no more for that, but at that moment, that brain is going, this is wonderful. This is terrific. And before I close, I will tell you two instances where that has happened in pretty much a state of exhaustion the other day, because I do wear out. I can go full force, but then I wear out. I sat out on the deck, and all of a sudden, I just looked around at the trees and I went, and I felt the whole release just looking out at that environment. Is it magnificent? Is it on a mansion? Is it associated? No, it was just looking at the property and looking at nature. And in my final words of saying, please try to continue to look for that, to look to be wowed. That's the word people would use. Oh, that really wowed me. Well, being wowed doesn't mean you have to have the most expensive cars or the biggest houses, but it means that there's something that touches you when you look out and you feel that sense of, oh, this is as good as it gets. And I've often felt that way. Walked on a beach and you look out and all of a sudden you go, oh, this is as good as it gets. And that's what we want to continue with. So last night, I don't know why, whether it was God, whether it was my inner voice, whether it was universe speaking to me, it was pretty much 8:45 and I was real tired and I heard, go outside. And that happens to me a lot. And I took a step outside the front door and I saw my first firefly of the season. And then I looked around and I said, okay, time to go in. And then I go, yeah, I'm going to look for 2 more, because in the spiritual sense, the number 3 is significant. So I waited until I saw 3 and then I came in and I thanked my higher self, or the God of my understanding, for getting me out to see the first firefly. And you know what? I felt as good as I did when I was a kid seeing that firefly. It just always brings this sense of joy to me, of younger years, of earlier carefree times when all you had to do was just be thrilled to be outside, be free, maybe not at school that day, that night, not having school the next day. So please just try to figure out for all of you what way you can find that wonder again. There's so many things out there that will do that for you. So please look to that and find your peace. And thank you for listening.